The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1. Ecclesiastes, chapter 1. Pick up where we left off last week and begin with verse 12. I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem, and I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun. Behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. I commune with mine own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yea, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. I said in my heart, Go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure. Behold, this is also vanity. I said of laughter, It is mad, of mirth, what doeth it? I saw it in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, to lay hold on folly till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. I made me great works, I builded me houses, I planted me vineyards, I made me gardens and orchards, and planted trees in them of all kinds of fruits. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and of the provinces. I got me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men, as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great, and increased more than all they that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Last week, by way of introduction, we discussed Solomon in verses 1 through 11 of chapter 1 and his perspective. From a view under the sun, all is vanity. There's no ultimate meaning. There's no ultimate satisfaction and fulfillment in things that are found in this world. We looked at how he showed that there was no profit to his labor. He felt that life was just a cycle, much like nature. He found that there was nothing new under the sun, and it was bitter to him to realize the speed with which he forgot and with which he would be forgotten. What made him so cynical is actually what we're going to read and what we have read today, because today we are looking at Solomon's pursuit of fulfillment. If verses 1 through 11 of chapter 1 were kind of the overview, verse 12 and down through this beginning portion of chapter 2 is going to show us how he came to that conclusion, because he definitely tried. Okay? What you learn in the book of Ecclesiastes, we talked last week about how this book is filled with wisdom, just like a book with like Proverbs would be. But a lot of the wisdom that's born out of Ecclesiastes is born out of experience. Things that Solomon pursued, things that Solomon tried, and left him unfulfilled. And with this understanding that things could not fulfill or satisfy. So let's look at this today, the record of his attempt that he made to find satisfaction, and the answer that he found. Number one, let's talk about the intellectual pursuit. The intellectual pursuit. Chapter 1, we read verse 12. It says, I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. Now we want to keep in mind that Solomon, of course, was the king of Israel. Now he doesn't just throw that in as random information, right? We know Solomon was the king, but what this is going to imply to us at the beginning of this passage, he's the king, right? And that implies wealth and status and ability. Solomon is not going to be hindered in any of these pursuits. Now, you and I would be, right? There are some things that if we were to say, you know what, I'm going to set out today, I'm going to try to find the secret to happiness, and I'm going to make all of these pursuits. Well, guess what? You and I are going to be hindered from pursuing all of the avenues. You and I don't have the money. You and I don't have the status. You and I don't have the ability to go out and pursue all of those different avenues. Solomon's not hindered by that. I was the king in Jerusalem. He had the ability and the status and the money to pursue all of these things. And yet it says in verse 13, the first thing he says is that I gave my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. Perhaps if he could acquire enough knowledge and enough wisdom, it might bring fulfillment, right? If I could pursue knowledge and could pursue wisdom, perhaps that's where the secret is. So I gave my heart to seek it, he says. Now this sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. Solomon soon realizes that this is an unhappy business that God often allows men to pursue. Right? This travail God hath given to the sons of man. Men have pursued this, and men have found that the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom and education and intellectualism doesn't always satisfy. In fact, it often ends in more travail than it does in happiness or blessing or joy. Education can play a very important role in life. When you read this, you're not intended to come away with the crusty attitude that, well, I guess wisdom doesn't matter, or education or learning or intellectual things, those things don't matter. We wouldn't say that at all. Getting an education is important. In the society in which we live, they've said that one of the three main factors to avoiding poverty is simply to graduate high school, right? To finish a certain degree of education. We actually have secondary education, and if you have a desire to pursue a particular field in life, there are a set of courses that are designed to help you in that path. No one's saying that education, and I don't think Solomon's saying that education just doesn't matter. It's not important. But as an end to itself, knowledge isn't going to produce lasting joy. In verse 14, he says that I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Think about that. I've seen all the works that are done. There's no doubt that Solomon had the access to pursue all that was available for him to learn, whether it be philosophy, psychology, history, fine arts, religions, languages, all the key things that people could and would study today to advance their intellectual status. But a room full of diplomas can still leave a man empty. There are people that have degrees upon degrees, and you know what they continue to do? They continue to go back to school so that they can learn more and get another degree and get another degree. Are those things worthless? I don't know that they're worthless, but they don't produce lasting joy. That in and of itself, or as an end to itself, can still leave a man empty. Verse 15, he says, that which is crooked cannot be made straight. Now you would think after all that Solomon had pursued, in his pursuit of wisdom and learning and understanding, you would think that he had the ability and the access to all the answers, right? That's not the way it works. There are some problems that no matter how much education you have, no matter how much you've invested in learning and in wisdom and in knowledge, there are some problems that you still can't fix, right? That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and no matter how much time, money, and effort he invested into an education and learning and wisdom, he's still coming away thinking, there are still some things I can't fix. There are still things that are crooked that I can't make straight. And that which is wanting, or that which is lacking, it can't be numbered. There's still no telling the amount of issues that we have that can't be fixed. It's frustrating, and I think it's frustrating even for us all these years later to find that there are many problems of life that book learning doesn't solve. There are problems in our world, there are problems in our country that you just don't fix. For all we know, there's still so much that we don't know. I think that is what we found. I think the most intellectual person would tell you that the more he learns, the more he realizes there is still yet to learn. The more that we know, the more that we understand, the further we realize we are behind, right? And it's interesting that he says that which is crooked cannot be made straight. No amount of learning or understanding, think about it today. Think about the prime example, right, with what's going on in our country today, especially with like sickness, or you have the issue with COVID or these things. As smart as men are, and as much as, like polio and tuberculosis and all of these things that we've gotten a hold of and grasped and basically have under control, the common cold, we don't have anything for it. We don't have anything that keeps it or prevents it. Men with a microscope can get down into the depths of molecules and get down into to very much like even the atomic structure of things. We know so much, and yet we still don't know how things work. We still don't know how the design of this universe truly works. Verse 16 says, I commune with my own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate. I've gotten more wisdom than all they that were before me in Jerusalem. Yea, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. Now here, you can look at it two ways. You can say that Solomon's boasting, or you can just say that Solomon's kind of taking inventory of where he is at right now. He said, I put in the effort. I was wiser. I was smarter than all of those that had come before me. I had done all that I could to learn and get more wisdom and more wisdom and more wisdom. And yet he is still finding what? There's problems that I can't fix. I'm finding the same travail that God has allowed other men to see in this pursuit. He's finding that education, that understanding, that knowledge is not fulfilling. It's not satisfying. It's not producing this long-lasting joy that he had been seeking. He said in verse 17, I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. Solomon tells us that he explored both extremes of human behavior, right? In the event that maybe he could find something. Well, if I found that education, if I found that diligent study and diligent acquiring of knowledge and wisdom isn't it, maybe folly's it. Now, by the word folly there, you're not intended to understand that he was, just out living stupidly. But, if this diligent study isn't it, maybe the opposite, maybe just a carefree life. One that doesn't care about anything, one that's just filled with, folly. Maybe that's the answer. Perhaps living a carefree life is the way. You and I both know folks that are probably on each side of the spectrum. Those that think that wisdom or understanding and knowledge is everything. And on the other side, we know people that have absolutely no ambition, no goals, nothing that they want to pursue in life. And none of them are any more happy than the other is. And none of them are finding any more fulfillment or lasting joy than the other is. And so he comes to the end after giving himself to wisdom and to madness and folly. And I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit. He found that, nope, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. I respect people that spend the money and take the investment of time to learn subjects and to grow in their knowledge, to speak. I appreciate that there are people that can speak and speak with authority on issues and subjects. They don't have any more lasting joy than anyone else does. Don't be fooled into thinking that this person, because they've acquired a great education or because they've acquired great intellect, has somehow found the meaning of life, has somehow found the secret to joy in this world, because Solomon has told us that's not it. And we can trust, because again, we're going to keep coming back to verse 12. I was king. Here's a person that had the means to accomplish it. With a job and a wife and 4 kids and a single income, there's potential that I could probably take some night classes sometime, or take a class. You can take an online class where I could fit in the time in the evenings or on the weekends. It's not likely that I could pursue degrees or education, right, to the point maybe that others could, and certainly not to the point that someone like Solomon could. But boy, what he found was that just that as an end to itself, he said that did not fill what I was looking for. For in much wisdom, verse 18, is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. The wiser you are, the more worries you have. It's been said that the more you know, the more it hurts. Now, the opposite of those things is true, or said to be true sometimes, right? They say that ignorance is bliss. They say what you don't know won't hurt you. But Solomon found that he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. The more that you learn, the more you realize there is to learn. The more that you know, the more you are able to see the problems that exist, and yet find still that those things which are crooked cannot be made straight. So it didn't do it, okay? The pursuit of intellectualism, the pursuit of wisdom, the pursuit of knowledge did not satisfy. All right, number 2, the pursuit of pleasure. Having failed in that first pursuit, now let's try pleasure. Chapter 2, verse 1, I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore, enjoy pleasure. Behold, this also is vanity. If I could just fill my life with pleasures, if I could just live it up, if I could just try, and perhaps I could try every experience that would stimulate the senses, that's where I could find joy. That's where I could find satisfaction or fulfillment. Now, I would say at the beginning, strictly speaking, there's not really anything wrong with enjoying the pleasures of life. Certainly those things that we enjoy within the bounds of what God has told us, there's nothing wrong with. Take a vacation, enjoy a day off, enjoy, go to the ball game, do this, do that. Enjoy the pleasures of life. There's nothing wrong with those. And yet what he has found is that when he gave himself over to those things and he made his attempt to pursue those things as a matter of, I'm going to find it. I'm going to find the secret to fulfillment and satisfaction, and I'm just going to give myself to every pleasure. This is when he finds this isn't working either. And God is obviously, there's not restrictions for us to enjoy pleasurably the things that he has given us within their bounds. But that's not what this attempt is for. It's not just about enjoying life. It's about pursuing those things with all of his life. Look at verse 2. I said of laughter, it is mad. Now here's a guy that has pursued every pleasure. He's pursued, it says there, I will prove thee with mirth, enjoy pleasure. And now, from a retrospect, he's able to look back, and I said of laughter, and here's a guy that had plenty of it and had plenty of good times. But I said of laughter, it is mad. And of mirth, what doeth it? He looks back on all the laughs, and now it's crazy. Now it's just absurd. What was it? It was empty. Isn't it interesting now being able to look back at all the good times and look back at all the enjoyable pursuits that he had? He doesn't feel any more satisfied when he's writing this down. He looks back at all the joy that he had, or all the temporal excitement and good times that he had. And I said, of laughter, it's mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? Of all the pleasures that he pursued, you read Ecclesiastes 2, verse 2, what doeth it? What are those doing for him now? Right? And it's not that he didn't pursue them, and it's not that he didn't enjoy them, but what are they doing for him now? Folks are convinced today that the next thing, that the next pleasure, those things are going to, okay, that I'll finally achieve what I'm looking for. Solomon looks back and says, it's not doing anything for me now. Today, he's able to look back and say, it was crazy. All the laughter, all the mirth, it doesn't do anything for him now. We should never look at people and when we look at them and they appear to be enjoying all the pleasures of life. They just always seem to have a good time. They don't say no. They don't restrict themselves from anything. They pursue anything and everything that they can. And we look at their lives and we're like, man, they always look like they're having such a good time. They just look like they're enjoying life. They're living life to the fullest. Don't necessarily look at those people and assume that they have a joy in their hearts or a satisfaction and fulfillment in life. Oftentimes, they have something still that's deeply, deeply missing. And that's how they're trying to fulfill it, or that's how they're trying to fill it, is by pursuing every joy, pursuing every extreme, pursuing every laugh, every mirth, all that they can. Don't look at people and assume that they have no problems. I remember the story, Billy Graham told the story of a psychiatrist who had a really, really depressed man who had come to him. And he was discouraged and he was battling depression deeply, and the psychiatrist couldn't get anything to work. He talked with him just day in and day out and couldn't get anything to work. And so he said, I heard that there's this show in town, and there's this Italian clown that has a little show in the evening, and people are just raving about it. And this, people are just bounding over with laughter and joy when they go to this show. And he says, why don't you do that? Why don't you forget about all your problems, even if just for a couple hours one night, and just go see this clown? And the man said, I am that clown. And it was an interesting story, right? Just because here's a man whose life is full of laughter and making other people laugh and bringing joy, and yet it's a disguise for something that's deeply, deeply lacking and a discouragement of his own. There is no guarantee, and don't be fooled into believing that the next thing will bring lasting happiness. So intellectualism didn't work. Pursuing pleasure didn't work. How about verse 3? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly till I might see what was that good for the sons of men which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. The pursuit of wine. Now the Bible tells us in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1, that wine is a mocker, and strong drink is raging, and he who is deceived thereby is not wise. Obviously, the person that wrote Ecclesiastes knows, because he wrote Proverbs 20 and verse 1, that wine can get you into trouble. Now he's pursuing wine next. Now you're not left with the idea, when you read what it says in Ecclesiastes 2 verse 3, I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom. You're not left with the impression that, well, he just pursued wine, he pursued a drunken stupor. It doesn't really give the impression there. You give the impression that he pursued wine, but still retained his wisdom and his understanding. And there are a lot of folks that pursue that, don't they? Boy, there are a lot of people that enjoy wine or alcohol. They like to talk about the different vintages, and they like to be knowledgeable about the years and the locations and the things about the grapes and the things about the beers and the craft beers and all of these things. There are a lot of people that pursue those things and are left with the attitude, and maybe it's been relayed to you at times before. There are people that are just convinced that you can't have a good time without a drink, right? If there's no drink with it, what's the point? What's the purpose? Now, we're not talking about people who are drunks. We're just talking about people that have pursued this as an important aspect of their life. It is a focal point. It is something that they enjoy. It is a cornerstone of their life. They enjoy those things. Solomon gave his pursuit to that at one time in his life. He decided that he would pursue, I would acquaint myself or give myself unto wine, retaining his wisdom, giving his heart, acquainting his heart with wisdom. But I'm going to try it, and I'm going to see where it leads. Well, he doesn't tell you that it led to any lasting fulfillment. We know the extremes, right, of alcohol. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging. He that's deceived thereby is not wise. We know the problems that it can cause. We know Solomon in a pursuit of it, even without extending to drunkenness or giving his life over to the bottle. He found this wasn't all I thought it was going to be. So that wasn't it. How about chapter 2, verse 4? The pursuit, I guess you could call this the pursuit of everything else. But no, here we've got his pursuit of greatness. He says in verse 4, I made me great works, I builded me houses, I planted me vineyards, I made me gardens and orchards, I planted trees in them of all kind of fruits, I made me pools of water, to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. That was actually an additional sign of status, was not just to have a servant, but if your servants are having babies and having more servants, that is an extra step up. I had great possessions, great and small, cattle, above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold and the peculiar treasure of kings and of the provinces. I got me men singers and women singers and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments and that of all sorts. So I was great. Here, we know about Solomon's expansion. We know about, goodness, just the temple project alone, right? We know that Solomon had greatness of things. We remember the story of the Queen of Sheba and what she saw and what she told after she saw all that Solomon had. There is no debating till this point. Israel's not seen a king like Solomon as far as greatness. And when I say greatness, we're talking about wealth. We're talking about expansion. We're talking greatness in Solomon. He talks about his building projects, in verses 4 and verse 5. And you've got the great works, the houses, the vineyards, the gardens. And then in verse 6, you have to, if you're going to build and expand, you have to have a way of watering those things. This system of irrigation that was built under Solomon, it was just amazing. You have to be able to water all the things that you just built, and he did it. And he just built, and he built, and he built, and he grew, and he grew. Servants, as many as you could count. All of the pleasures that go along with greatness about men singers and women singers. Interestingly enough, and if you want to study this sometime, in verse number 8, when it says the delight of the sons of men, there are a lot of commentators that believe that he's talking about women. When he mentions the delights of the sons of men, they believe that he's talking about women. Now, if that's true, and that's what it means, that would actually be additionally true with the context here. Solomon had over 1,000 women, hundreds of wives and concubines. Whether he had an intimate relationship with all of those, I don't know that that's likely, just because of some of the marriages that were probably arranged and alliances that were made. But we do know that of all the tons and tons of women that he had, they actually turned his heart from the Lord. They didn't actually turn him toward the Lord. They were not actually something that brought him into an intimate and closer relationship with God. They were not great to him. If that's part of what it means there, it does go to doubly prove the point. But he got him men singers and women singers, the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, that of all sorts. And he was able to say, I was great. Solomon gets to the end of this and he says, I was what I was. I was great. I was greater than any that had come before me. And he says in verse 10, whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy. For my heart rejoiced in this, in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. I kept nothing back that was going to make me happy. I did everything that I could. I pursued everything that I could and built everything to make me happy. And if I thought it would make me happy, I didn't say no. And then verse 11, I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. These things as an end to themselves, without a view of something greater, without a view of something more important, this was vanity. Just like he said at the beginning of chapter 1, right? That it's all vanity. Everything's vanity. Well, he's telling you in detail now all that he pursued. Yeah, chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, this guy sounds really, really crusty. And yet now you're kind of getting some insight that this isn't just wisdom talking, it's experience talking. He's lived this. He has pursued everything that he knows to pursue. And I pursued knowledge, and I pursued pleasures, and I pursued wine, and I pursued greatness and the buildup of things. And I didn't say no to anything that was making me happy. But I'm not happy. But I found that it was just all vanity and vexation of spirit. I was chasing the wind. I couldn't grasp what I was trying to grasp, and there was no lasting fulfillment. Turn to Psalm chapter number 4. We'll get ready to close here in just a bit with this. All of the things that Solomon is pursuing here, he is telling us it didn't do it. You and I do not necessarily have to go and prove this for ourselves, right? There is this misunderstanding, right? And it's just a prevailing theory that, everybody at some point or another has to sprout their wings, and they have to sow their wild oats, and they have to pursue, they have to go and they have to try, and they have to live, and they have to see if it's for them. Well, you know what? Someone with much more affluence, someone with much more ability has gone and tried everything that there is to try. And you know what he has found? He found that there wasn't any lasting joy and fulfillment. I'm not sure that we have to convince or teach kids that, you have to, you won't like it if you don't try it. Yes, go ahead and pursue these things. Not as an end to themselves. If you are missing something, if we are looking at the generation that is to come after us, and it's obvious that there is a longing, there is a missing of something, there is a void in the lives of individuals, you and I know what that is. And yet, we know that men without Christ are lost. What do you think it means to be lost? And yet men seem to try and fill that void with so much other stuff. Heed Solomon's wisdom. In Psalm number 4, Psalm 4, verse number 6, there be many that say, who will show us any good? Lord, lift thou up the light of thy countenance upon us. Thou hast put gladness in my heart more than in the time that their corn and their wine increased. The joy, the gladness, the blessing that comes from the Lord is greater than those that may have a house that's full. Corn and wine increased. All the things of this world and all the greatness and all the things that men can enjoy. And yet it can't compare to what the Lord is able to put into the hearts of his people. The only place that we can find true and lasting joy is in what the Lord Jesus Christ gives to his people. There is something that we have as believers that it's obvious that this world is missing. And men may go left and right and try and fill that void with so many different things. And what men need is the Lord Jesus Christ. Solomon is a man that is telling you, I have tried, I have made the attempt, and we should listen to the wisdom that says it's not there. It's not in pursuing those things as an end to themselves. Nothing wrong with the pleasures of life, nothing wrong with education. There's nothing wrong with building the orchards and the vineyards and the irrigations. There's nothing wrong with those things. But when I pursued those things in themselves, that didn't profit. That's not what brought true fulfillment and satisfaction. Men fill their lives with so much that won't solve the problem. Okay? Let's be there for men with the answer. We live in a time where obviously people battle depression and discouragement. People have a longing for something that's, it's obvious that men realize there's something that's missing. We have the answer to that. We can share with men the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and how that having Christ in your life, that being redeemed by his blood, that living for Christ gives men a life and a purpose that is absolutely worth living. And pray that God gives us opportunities to do that. Father, we're coming today and we ask that you will bless in our service.